recording. Anybody have any questions from previous lecture? No? Fuzzy search. Cool. Okay. Give me a second. Let me close some tab. So in fuzzy search, it's like this. I'm not going to code that part, but it's like this. So say here, this is text search, right? So this is how we create index, right? Creating index, you're okay with you have understood this part, right? Creating index. Okay. So basically we want, for example, let's say we have a collection named post, right? In that we want to allow search, text-based search. Okay. So let's say we create two documents in this with title and content. And we want to support text search on both the fields, both title and content, right? Now, let's say I search with intro and GraphQL. Now, this is not, we don't have this exact combination of strings in uh, any of the text, right? This is Node.js intro, but if you check, this should not match this, right? But for fuzzy search, intro is available here and intro is available also here. And GraphQL is not in any of these, but intro is. So here we should get both the results, right? This is what fuzzy search is doing for you. It is checking uh, which document is sort of having any of the strings, any of the words, right? Understood? Okay. How do you achieve with Mongo? You just have to search it like this. Once you create, let's say okay, once you add this index, you can add this index by Mongo shell. You log into your database with the Mongo shell and then you create an index. After that, you can start searching text. Okay, is it clear? Cool. So today we are going to look at relations in data. One second. Okay, so today we are going to look at different types of relations in we have in data, and how are the relations useful and how we can implement those in our applications. Okay, we are going to go through this diagram. I have created a very simple diagram. So in this diagram, I will explain the meaning of relations and different types of relations we have, right? So most of the time we will have more than one collection in our application. If we create an application, most of the time we will have multiple collections, not just one collection. So this collection and this collection, say we are talking about blog application where users can create posts. So in this user will have we will have a user collection where we will store the user data. Then we will have blog collection. In that we will have users posts, and then we will have comments. Uh, we will have comment collection as well. Okay, but for each blog there must be some author, right? Each blog is having an author, which is one of the users on the platform. So how do we represent that? So we say that blog is actually related to user, correct? Similarly, users will be adding comments. So each comment is going to be having an author who is writing the comment, who is adding the comment. So comment is also related to user, and comment is also related to blog because uh, this comment user can add on some post, right? So if I give you an example, so let's say we have these three collections. This is our user collection. This is say call it users, call it blogs, call it comments. In this we will have documents. So you can represent documents like this: user 1, user 2, user 3, and so on, right? User 4. Similarly, we will have blog 1, blog 2, blog 3, and so on, right? Multiple blogs. So these are all documents in each of the collections. Similarly, we can add comments. Okay. Now, if you look at this, uh, if you look at this blog, there must be one of these users. There must be uh, one user who is the author of this blog, right? So we say this blog is actually belonging to a user. So let's say, for example, this one is related to user number 3. So we say there is a relation between blog collection and user collection. Somebody from this collection is actually the author of document, all the documents in this, right? So each document in blogs collection is related to some document in user collection. Does that make sense? I'll write it down. uh, each document in blogs collection is related to uh, some document in users collection. Okay. There is no issue with the placement. It is fine. But does this make sense? So instead of creating diagrams like this, where we create for each, let's say for each collection, for each document we write, we create diagrams like this. We say, we create a very simple diagram. Instead of having a diagram like this, we create a very simple diagram, and it is called entity diagram. We say this is user entity, and this is blog entity, and this blog entity is dependent on user entity. So that means if there is a blog, if there is a blog document, then it must be having some user document as well, right? Let me plug in my charger. This makes sense. Instead of having, this very a diagram for each document, we make a simple diagram saying blog entity is related to user entity. Clear? Okay. One more thing to note here is in this relation, I'll tell you what type of relation this is and how many different types of relations there are. But in this relation, we say user is the independent entity, right? We say user is the independent entity and blog is dependent entity. Blog is dependent on user entity. If there is no user, then we cannot have blog. For example, say blog 1. If user 3 is not there, we cannot have blog 1 and blog 4. Clear? Okay. Similarly, if we were to make diagram about comment entity, we will make so if we were to represent relation with comment entity, we will say that some user must be adding that comment. So it is, let's say, for comment number 1, the user is this one, right? Let's say this is the user and stroke. And for comment 3, you can say, let's say this is the user 3 added the comment number 2. And right, this is possible. Okay. So each comment is actually related to a user as well, like this. But how do we know which blog is this comment added to, right? So we also have to define that and that relation as well. So we say, let's say comment number 1 is added to blog number 1 and comment number 2 is added to blog number 4. So if you look at this, user number 3 added the comment number 2 on blog number 4. And you can even say the same author, he is also the this person is also the author of blog number 4. So this person added a comment on their own blog post. So it doesn't have to be always like this, but you can infer this. Okay. And you can say that this comment number 3 is added to blog number 2. Okay. Added by user number 1. Or you can point it to something else. Let's say added by user number 4. Okay. So comments are also related to blogs as well as related to users. Is this clear or is it confusing? Let's change this to some other color. This is a relation between blog and user. This is a relation between comment and user. And this arrow in orange is a relation between comment and blog. Okay. Does this make sense? Any questions till this point? Okay. So these types of relations are called one to one to many. So this user has created multiple blocks, right? This user has two blocks, and this user can also add many more blocks. That is possible, right? So one user has relation is related to many blocks. Clear? So there is one type of relation is which is called one to many. There is another type of relation called one to one, and there is another type of relation called many to many. So you also write it like this. So this first type of relations that we have just discussed is one to many. Why we say it one? Why we call it one to many? Because there can be only one owner or author of blog collection. It cannot be related to multiple users at the same time. It can only be related to one user. So one user has many blogs. Clear? So we are talking about this relation right now. So these are three different types of relations. We are talking about relation between user and blog. Okay. So the first, this one is many blogs can be related to a single user, right? But one blog can always have only one user who is the author of the blog, right? Is this clear? What is one to many? So to give you an example, here we have let's say Abhishek. He created blog D. Then Umakant has authored, let's say, 3 blogs, and there can be one user who has not authored any blogs. These are examples. So these are documents, concrete documents, and this is, yes, a YouTube channel can have many videos. So one channel can have multiple videos. Okay. So one user can create many blogs. One blog can be created only by one user. So we look at this relationship from both the directions. We look at it from user to blog. So user can have many blogs. So one user can have many blogs, but one blog can only have one user, can be related to one user. So this is why it is one to many. Okay. Coming to the second type of relationship. But okay, before we do that, this comment to user is also one to many type of relation. One user can have many comments, but one comment can be related to only one user at a time, right? Multiple users cannot own a single comment. Is that clear? And if you look at comment to blog type of relationship, this is also one to many. One comment on one blog, but one blog has many comments, right? One blog can has many comments. So this is in this relation, this is the independent entity. We cannot add a comment unless there is no blog. So for example, if there is no blog number 1, we cannot have comment number 1. If there is no blog number 2, we cannot have comment number 3, right? Does this make sense? The concept of independent and dependent entities, does it make sense? So how do we describe it in comments, right? Sorry, how do we describe these relations in MongoDB in documents? So let's say we have a user document. This is the user document. If we talk about, let's say, user number one, then this is that user, right? This is user with some ID, some name property, some other properties are also there. So this is, let's say, one one user document, right? And if we have blog document, so we can have blog document that looks like this. uh, there is ID, there is title of the blog, there could be content, there could be other properties like when was this created at, when was this last updated at, right? All these things. Then there is author property. Inside author property, we have a user ID. User ID is pointing to the same value as this user. So with this, you can tell that this person is the author, and then name and image are also copied here. Okay, this is how we represent this type of relations in MongoDB in our documents, right? We store a field which can store, we have a field which can store or point to the user document, right? Which can point to a document in the user's collection. Does this make sense? Anybody has any question? Is this part clear? Having an author property in the blog that will actually point to the, so here, just like here, how do we store, or how do we say that blog 1 is authored by user number 3 and blog 2 is authored by user number 1? We store this author property, right? Is this clear or not clear? Okay, this is simple, right? Okay, coming to the second type of relation, which is one-to-one type of relation. Okay, we have looked at one-to-many type of relation. We also call it many-to-one or one-to-many. It's the same thing only. If we look at from blog to user, we have many blogs to one user. If we look at from user to blog, we say one user to many blogs. Okay. Coming to the second type of relation, we have one to one. Now, one to one is similar to one to many. Only the only difference is that let's say if we limit that user can only create one blog. Okay. Similarly, for example, if you want to have a practical example, let's say there is some civilian Indian citizen, and that Indian citizen can have only one Aadhaar card. That Indian citizen can have only one PAN card or one voter ID, right? So this type of relation is one-to-one type of relation. Okay. Is this clear? All right. Any doubt about this? No. So for one example is, let's say if we look at user to YouTube channel type of relation, one Google user can create only one YouTube channel, right? If you have a Google account, you can only create one YouTube channel. You cannot create multiple. It is also possible that somebody who is a Google user, they have a Google account, but they don't have a YouTube channel. This is still one-to-one type of relation. Okay. And how do we represent this in documents? We represent it in documents just like we represent one-to-many. We say Aadhaar, and inside this we can have, let's say, owner property, which is pointing to the user. So always it is the dependent entity which is pointing to independent entity. One user can have multiple Google accounts. Who do you consider as a user? Where I consider a user, when you create a Google account, you are one user. If you as a person have multiple Google accounts, then each account is a user for Google, right? We are not considering that one human can have multiple YouTube channels. We are saying one Google account can have one YouTube channel. Okay, does that make sense? One Google account can have one YouTube channel, but one person can have multiple. So if you want to see this, so you can say person, and you can say, you can assume that these are the same person. These accounts are owned by the same person. You can say that. Okay. But we are not considering this, right? So how do we store the information of this relation? We say this is the dependent entity and this is the independent entity, and we store the details, some uniquely identifying details, right? Let's say ID is a uniquely identifying detail. So we can store the user ID in the owner object here, right? This will always point to some user who is there, right? Does this make sense? Okay. This is the second type of relationship. So the third type of relationship is many to many, where one example you can look at is one WhatsApp user and relationship between WhatsApp user and WhatsApp group. So you as a WhatsApp user can be participant of multiple groups, right? Clear? You as a user are participant of multiple WhatsApp groups, but one WhatsApp group can also have multiple WhatsApp users, right? Clear or not clear? One group can have multiple participants, and one participant, one user can be participant in multiple groups. For example, if you look at this, Abhishek is part of these three groups, group D, A, C. But this user is participant in these three different groups, group A, B, C, right? So this as a group has multiple participants. So group has many participants and one user has multiple users. So this user is part of multiple groups. So this is how we represent the this is how we represent many to many type of relationship. Let's say there are these three users, Abhishek, Umakant, and Varun, and we have these uniquely identifying values, ID. So ABCDE, ABCDF, ABCDR. And if we talk about, let's say, one group called, let's say, college homework, then this has some ID. How do we store the relationship of participants? We store the relationship of participants by having some array, right? So this is going to have multiple participants, right? This is clear, right? So A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, F, A, B, C, D, R, all three are participant in this group. And this group only has one participant, A, B, C, D, E. Okay. And this group has no participant at all. Well, that cannot be the case. So the owner user must always be participant. This is how we store many to many relation. We say this user is a participant here, is a participant in this, is a participant in this. This user is a participant in this and in this. Okay. Any question? No questions? When do we start coding? Okay, we will start coding, but it is important to understand the concepts as well. So theoretical concepts are uh, very important. Coding part can be done easily if you understand clearly. Okay, I guess there are no questions, so let's move to coding part. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to install Mongoose, and we are going to build this user blog comment type of a relationship. Okay. Once this is done, I'm going to write create a folder called db. Inside this, let's create connect database file. I'm going to copy it from here, and inside this I'm going to say blogs example, right? So in this, I'm going to start with user model, right? So we will say mongoose, we will create a schema first. We talked about schema yesterday, and this is going to have properties. So first we will start with id. This is of type string. This is always required. We cannot create a user without a name, right? Second thing is a email. This is going to be again of type string, and password of type string. Password we don't need, but let's have it. Image of type string, and here I'm going to use timestamps. Okay, I think these should be enough. Email, password, image, these are enough, I guess. The second thing that we are going to build is, second thing that we need is user model. So we say mongoose.model, and we want to use users collection. So use this schema defined here. And that's it, right? This will allow us to create multiple users. Here, users is not dependent on anything. So we don't need to define any property which will store reference to some other collection. Okay. But let's say if we want to define blog model, then how do we do that? Let me copy this. Let's call it post. So in this, we will have a title which is required and some content which is also required, and I'm going to say minimum length of this is going to be at least 50 characters. Okay, here we don't need title or image. We need timestamps. When was this created at? When was this updated at? But we also need author, just like we discussed here. How do we store the relation between blog and user? User here being the independent entity, but blog is dependent on user. So this is how we store this. So we say user ID, which is going to be a string. So this is how we define the schema for objects, nested objects. Okay, we just give an object, inside that we give these properties and the data type. Okay, so we say string, and we say name and image. Do we really need to store name and image if we are already storing author user ID? Can we not get the name and image from here? With the user ID, we will fetch the user. That is possible, right? But we are storing name and image so that let's say if we fetch multiple blogs at the same time, right? For example, for home screen, let's say we fetch multiple blogs, then we don't need to fetch user name and image. Okay, maybe we will need to show email address or something, but for the home page or for let's say while we are showing blog, we don't need any other detail other than name and image. We are only going to need name and image, and we don't want to make a DB call for let's say 10 DBs. Okay, so for 10 blogs, if we are showing a list of 10 blogs, we don't want to fetch uh, all these users by making a call to the DB. We can directly read from here. So this will save a DB call. Okay, this will actually be an optimization. That's why we are storing name and image, so that we don't actually need to fetch data from user collection. Okay, so you can call this post model, and this is going to be a comment model. Here we don't need title, we only need content. The minimum length is going to be, let's say, 10 or 8. You can even remove this. This is but this is required. We also need to store who is the author of the comment. So you can say user and you can say user ID, right? Name and image. So for example, if we have 15 comments on a blog, then we don't want to fetch each user's name and image in the from the users collection. We can just directly show name and image here. Okay, directly from the comment document. Similarly, we can say blog ID is going to be a string, and let's say title if we want to store title. Otherwise, I don't think there is any need. So we can say this is pointing to some document in the blog collection having this ID, right? And having this title. So this is how you store, how you create models to represent relations in MongoDB, right? Any questions so far? Everything is clear, right? I'm not getting responses. Okay. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show you is, obviously, we are not going to create data for all of these collections one by one. I'm going to show you a tool which is used for development, and this is an npm library called Faker. So this library will help you to generate a large amount of fake data for development purpose. Okay, but that is also realistic, not just a random bunch of strings. So we install this library, and we are installing in it as a dev dependency. We are not going to use it in production. Okay, now how do we use this? We import it and we write some function, we write some script, and we run the script. Okay, so basically we are going to write some scripts. We say fake users, create fake users.js, and let's import Faker. Okay, so Faker is wrapped as an object. Then we are going to create a function called add async function add fake users, and we are going to say of count, let's say 100. We will create 100 fake users. Okay, so let's have an array, empty array. Inside this we will say run the loop and create a fake user, right? So we say we are going to create a fake object, user object. So we need name, whatever properties that we have defined over here, name, email, password, and image. So we say faker dot here you can look at username. You can say name, right? Faker dot internet dot okay. I think if I say first name, so each this Faker object has different classes. So address, animal, color. You can look at this module to create different types of data. So we need a person's name. So this name is a module, and we can use this name module to create first name and last name. right? So first name plus space plus faker dot name plus last name. Okay. Also, let's use gender ever here. Let's also use gender over here. So that we can uh, add different types of names. This is just to give you an example how to generate realistic fake data. Okay, so I'm going to say gender here is male or female. Okay, so let's I want to use I want to randomize this. So I'm going to say if math dot random, this is going to give me a number between 0 and 1. If it is greater than 0.5, then use male, otherwise use female. Okay, and this first name also takes this gender as the parameter. So if we give male, then it will give us a male name, otherwise like Tom. If we give female, then it will give us a female name. If we don't give it anything, then it will create a random name. Okay, so let's use this gender over here to get the uh, to get a name, a female or male name, right? Gender, and we also want to have email, right? So how do we create email? Faker dot internet dot email, right? And inside that, if we give first name and last name, then it will actually like this. If we give first name and last name here, it will create an email that looks like this email belongs to this person. Otherwise, if we don't give anything, it will give us a very randomized email. Okay, so actually let's use these first name and last name like this. First name and last name, give first name, right? And last name. The last another thing that we want to generate is the password. So for password, you can say faker dot internet dot password. This will generate a random password. Okay, if we can give it the length. So if we say if we want, let's say, password of length 15 or 10, then you can easily do that. And we also want an image, right? So faker dot internet dot avatar will give you an image, right? Like this. Some random photo. Okay. So I think this is not taking any parameters. Otherwise, we could use one of these values. So once this is done, let's just post to users dot push user. Where do they get all this data? They probably scraped it from internet. Okay. Now once this is done, we can actually use the user collection here. So user, let's use await dot. So this user is coming from user model dot create. And if we pass this array, it will create all the users. Okay. So we have to call this function, but we have to call this function after we connect to the database. So let's use that. Right, connect database dot then create fake users, and I'm going to say create. First, let's just create 20 fake users. Okay. Once I run this script, it is going to connect to the database. Then it is going to call this function. This function will generate fake data of users and then push that data to the database. Not from the dark web. This is already available in normal web. Okay. So I'm going to say run node scripts create fake users. Okay. It says connected to the database. And let's close this and Mongo sh. If I show you, so DBs, then we have this is the database blogs example, right? So this is available here, blogs example. If I use switch to this, I show you collections, then we have users collection, right? Why do we have only users collection when we have defined post and comments as well? Why do not we have these collections? Because wait, because we have not imported these files, right? We have not imported. So yeah, we have not actually these are never uh, created or executed. These files are never executed. That's why they are not created. Okay. So if I show you db.users.find, then you can see that Percy Zemlek, this is the email that it generated, mail, password. If you open this link, then okay, scary. These are randomized avatars, some random photos from the internet. Okay, like this, male, female. So we have different types of data. We can also create birthdays. You can also create phone numbers with this. So if you want, you can also create all that. So let me show you. Do users dot delete many. So in the user model, let's add phone. Let's just call it phone. And we are going to use a string value because we also want to store things like uh, +91, all this, like this. We also want this. So that's why I'm keeping it as a string. And birth date. And this is going to be a date. Okay. So I have deleted all of the previously created because we have the option to create using faker. So we don't need to worry about deleting and creating again. Cool. So in the create here, let's add phone. We say faker dot phone dot. If you say IMEI, this is going to give you a randomized IMEI number. Or if you say number, then this is going to give you a number like this. And you can also replace, you can give it a format, in which type of format you want the numbers, right? If you don't give it any parameter, it is going to generate like this. Or if you want, you can also give it some format. So let's not worry about that right now. Then we have birth date. I think it's better to call it date of birth. So we say faker dot date, and you can use all these different options. So birth date will give you birthday, but you can also use something like between, and you can pass two dates. It will generate a date between these two dates. Okay. So the option to use birth date is like this. It will give you some string like this, and you can also pass maximum and minimum age, right? So let's say if we want to use this one, so minimum age is 18, maximum is 65, and this is the user's birthday we will get. Okay. So I will run this script. I will actually this time I will create, let's say 100 users. So these will be created. Again, creating 100. So it says 100 users added, right? If you look at, uh, so I have run this script multiple times. So actually, let me open another terminal. Mongo search, use blogs, example, db.users.find. So you can see all these users with date of birth, phone number. Uh, phone number is coming weird. This is a weird phone number. Okay. So we have created that and updated that as well. Clear? This is how you create fake user data. Now let's add a script to create fake blog data. How do we create fake blog data in our database? Okay. So again, we are going to use this post model. We are going to use this post model. Actually, we are going to use both post and user model. So let me remove all of this. We will say post dot create post, right? Let's create post. So here we need title. If you look at this, we need title and content. And how do we get a title? I'm just going to use this I'm going to use this random hacker phrase as the title, right? As the post title. And for content, I'm going to say faker dot lorem dot paragraphs, and I will get, let's say, 6 paragraphs, or you can add a different a random number here as well, but this is fine. Okay. Now the tricky part here is how do we actually add the author detail, right? So for author details, we are going to say user ID, name, and image, right? So in this, we are actually going to get all the users. User dot find. This will give us all the users that we have already created in our database. So we will pick a random user. So we say users. We will pick a random user for each post. Okay. For picking a random user, I'm going to use this library called built-in module called crypto. And I say crypto dot random integer, and I can give minimum and maximum number here. So minimum, I'm going to say 0 because I want to choose a valid index position, and users dot length as the maximum value. So this is not including. If I have, let's say, 500 users, so it will give me a number between 0 and 499, including 499. It will not give me 500. Okay. So now we have a user. So we can say user dot underscore ID. Okay. Dot underscore ID. Let's convert this to a string. Could be an object or something. Then we have user dot name and user dot image, right? So this is how you generate the author details. So with post dot create, you can see that the post will be added. I'm going to create, let's say, 1000 posts. Okay. It says 1000 posts added. Let's go and check in our terminal. There is a question line, line for 27. Which line? This one. Can you, Aman, can you tell me which line you were confused about? I don't have, I think this was, I missed at the time when you posted your doubt. Which file? Okay, right. Uh, cool. So let's actually check. Now, if I do show collections, now you can see post collection is also added. So if we say db.post.find, oh, okay. We do not have any post for some reason. We should have. Create fake posts. We are creating in this. Oh, we never inserted in this empty array. So we passed an empty array, right? So this time let's use 1000 posts added. And if you look at the each post, you can see that we have a title. This is the title. This is a very random. If we navigate the circuit, we can get to the SSD sensor through digital TCP bus. This is a very randomized hacker phrase or something. And then we have paragraphs here. Okay. And we have author. Author, you can see there is user ID, name, and image. Okay. But what happens if user, let's say this user with this user ID changes their image? What happens to the blog data? We also have to update this. Okay. This we have to take care of, that whenever any of these values changes, any of these values, name or image changes for this user ID, ID is never going to change. But if name or image changes, we also have to update all the post for this user, right? Okay. So with this, we have created fake user and post data. Let's also add user and, sorry, comments data. So create fake comments. This time we are going to use comment as well, comment model. Okay, so we will create a fake comment. Let's use comment dot create comments, right? Here we don't need title for comment, we need only content. This is, we need content, we need user, and let's call this post. So we need user and post. This is user, and we also need a fake post. One of the posts that we have added, not any post, right? So we will randomly pick a post. So this will give a random post, and in this we have post ID. So we say post underscore ID. We say post dot title, right? This is how you can generate random comment data. Very easy. And I actually want to generate, let's say, 5,000 comments. So it says 5,000 comments headed, and dv dot comments dot find. So if you look at this, all these comments are added. We have ID, we have content, we have user object and post object. Okay. And this is the post title. Clear? Any questions here? So this was to give you an example of, to give you the knowledge of how to create fake data. And now you can start creating APIs to fetch the blogs, to fetch the users, to fetch the comments, all that, right? So that you can start building your front end around this. And this, all of this data is actually stored in DB, right? If you want to, let's say, test APIs by having a huge amount of data, you can use Faker to do that. Okay. Why are we storing user and post data? Well, if we add a comment, then how do we know that which user is the author of this comment? We need to have some unique identifier, right? For each comment document, we need to represent the relation, correct? But your question is valid for why are we storing image and name? We can always get name and image, right? Okay. So to give the answer to this question, and it's a very good question. It's in fact going to take me some effort. Let's say I'm designing a screen. Let's say this is the screen I'm designing, and I have this first part is where the blog goes, right? This one is for blog. And now I have all the comments at the bottom. I have all the comments, right? Inside this, I want to show in the blog, I want to show uh, title here. Okay. let me remove. I'll have to use boxes for everywhere. So this is the title, right? And let's use left line there. Then I want to show the user information here. So user avatar and whoever is the user. So probably author name, and also let's say date when, right? Date when the author when the post was added. Then here you can say we have all the lines or paragraphs, right? So the reason why I am saying all this is that this question is valid for uh, if we have user data with the in the user collection name and image. Why are we storing here? So the reason is, let's say we make a uh, call to the server, say get blog, right? So this could be get blog by some ID, right? And this will give us the blog data, and this will give us the blog data, and the blog data is always going to be like this. This is what we will have, right? If we have, let's say, username and user image, then we can use these properties directly from here, and we don't have to make any other call to get user by ID, right? Get slash user slash ID. We don't have to call with this ID to fetch the author name and author image, because we want to show author image and author name here. We can directly use from here, and we don't have to call this. Does this answer your question? Similarly, if we fetch all the comments, say if we make an API call saying get comments by blog, and we give blog ID, right? We give blog ID. So we will filter all the comments by this blog ID. So for example, let's say we get db.comments. I want to fetch filter with this blog ID dot find, and I say post ID, and this is the value. So you will see, let me decrease the font size a little bit. Is the font size clear? So you can see we are getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are getting 5 comments. You can see we are getting 5 comments. So we don't have to, if we already have name and image, then we don't have to call this API to get name and image for each of the user. Otherwise, if we don't have these details, then we will have to call the API to fetch name and image for all the users. So we'll have to call, let's say, this API 5 times, but this is not required. So this is called redundancy or duplicacy. Uh, we store the data on database. We store duplicate data on database on some purpose, for some purpose, and that is this is called redundancy. But if we are storing duplicate data, that means we are getting response without making any unnecessary API calls, right? We are getting the data in the same API request. Not we are not making any other API call. So this redundancy is coming at a cost. It's not coming for free, right? So all of this redundancy, let me group this. This is coming at a cost. Sorry, all of this redundancy is an optimization here. So this is your decision. If you want to not have redundancy, you could make the API calls. But what is the disadvantage of this redundancy? The advantage is obviously lesser API calls to get the required data. But the disadvantage, what is the disadvantage? Can you think of a disadvantage? Yes, it takes more space. We need more space. Another disadvantage is that every time independent entity changes, right? Or let's say, for example, here user details update, then we have to update, uh, we have to update all the posts authored by the user, right? So this is coming at a, this is the cost. But we make the decision. Why do we make the decision to store this to based on something called write versus read ratio. Now suppose I am an author and I have created 10 or 15 posts. Okay, let's say I am a popular author. How many times am I going to update my profile? For example, if you just need to have a ballpark figure, let's say I can change my uh, update my image 10 times a month. Okay, but how many times are other users going to read blogs, my blogs, right? So for example, it could be something, let's say uh 20,000 users have read my post. So we are actually fetching this we are making this API call 20,000 times, right? We are making this DB call 20,000 times. But if I were to change my image, let's say just 10 times, I will have to update only 10 times each. I will have to update each post only 10 times. But if I were to fetch this user data, I will have to fetch 20,000 times. So I want to optimize my reading time or querying time, but update time still does not bother me because that does not happen very often. Okay. So in this, how roughly I have 10 writes over 20,000 reads. This is very good optimization. But let's say if this were writes were more and reads were less, then this would not make any sense at all. Does this is this clear or not? For some people it may not be clear, but this is not something you need to know about right now. I just wanted to answer this question, and this is a very good question. And people often face this challenge while they're working or on designing their applications. Okay. Anything else? If there is nothing, then you can we can start building APIs, which is very simple. So I'm just going to build API for blogs. Okay. Rest of the things you can do as an exercise for yourself. So I'm just going to create a folder called routes. Inside that, I'm going to create blogs.routes.js. Okay. And we need to install Express. And I'm going to have uh, my I'm going to have this. I'm going to copy this index file here. I'll walk you through this. Don't worry, I'll walk you through this. So let's also install Force and Morgan. Let me remove this one. Let me remove this one. Let me remove this and this. We will apply the router. We don't have any static files, so we'll remove this. Here, let's remove this. This is the only thing that we need. Instead of employee router, we will say blogs.route. Okay, I'm going to call it post router. So, right, I have this file. I'll have to export a router here, and we will apply the router on this. This is a function, so we need to call this, and we can say router.get. And the first thing that I'm going to define is post slash uh, all, right? So I'm going to make it paginated for you so that we can understand pagination in this example itself. And we're also going to make it possible to search in the title and the content. Okay. So this is, let's export. Let's call this post router. Okay. So I'm just going to say slash posts, and we will get request and response. And inside this, I'm going to say, first of all, let's just have all the posts, right? So here we are going to use the model from post. We need to make it a sync function. One more thing, we don't need to write the logic here. We can instead write the application logic somewhere else, and we can call we call those functions controller functions, which actually control the logic. Okay. So I'm going to introduce you to this sort of this pattern that is accepted throughout the industry. So let's define a function. So fetch post. We will export this function, and all of the parameters that we need, we will send in the function, but we are going to say fetch post, right? Let's do try catch because something could go wrong. So we will log the error. we will say return response dot status, and the code here we are going to pass as for 500, and we are going to send an error. Okay. Something went wrong. Otherwise, if everything goes right, we say send inside data. We are going to send post. Now, just going to tell you what pagination request looks like. So in pagination request, we send get request, say post, right? We say post, and in this we say something like I'm on page number 1 and I want 10 posts. This is how we send the request from front end. And with this, backend has to send, a server has to respond with data like, okay, it is going to say the user is on page number 1 and user wants 10, 10. So it is going to say data, which is going to be an array, right? Instead, let's make it an object. And it is going to say records. It will send 10 records. Okay. So it will send 1, 2, 3, and so on up to 10, right? 10 records. It will send 10 posts. And it is also going to send how many total records are there. So that on front end, we can show that you are seeing from 1 to 10 out of, let's say, 500 or 5,000 posts. Okay. So here we need to send this as well. Clear? This is what we want to send. So how do we say records, and this is we are going to get here. So posts and total posts. This function has to return these two things, right? This has to return the records, all the posts, and total posts. So here we are going to extract page number and count from here. Okay, thanks. So we are going to extract page number and count from here. So in this we can get the page and count from request dot query object. Request dot query object will have all the params which are passed, query params which are passed in the request. But if let's say they are not passed, then we can have some default here, right? Page number 1 and default count is 10. We can do this. But if they are passed, so the value is always going to be a string, right? So we are going to say page, and we say number, we will change it to a number value. Or let's rather use parse int. Okay. With this, we can pass page number and count over here. Let's also pass all of this inside an object only. So here we will get page and count, right? I'm destructuring directly over here. Are you clear with this? if I pass an object here, if I pass an object over here, inside that I pass page and count, then I can directly destructure this object and get page and count. Okay, so here I'm going to use the post model from database. Okay, so we are going to say, first of all, we are going to fetch total posts. So post dot count documents. With count documents, you can get total post, right? And then you can say post await post dot find. You do dot find, and then you do if you are on, let's say, if you want only 10, so you say count. Okay, if you want count 10, when the value of count is 10, you can limit only 10 records. Okay, and how do we check, how do we get the value for records for, let's say, page number 1 or page number 2? So we use skip, right? We use skip here. And how many values should we skip? If let's say, page is 4 and count is 10, how many values should we skip? User is on page number 4, then we should skip 30, right? First 30 we should skip. Is this clear? If the user is on page number 4, then the person wants to see from 31st to 40, correct? Not, we don't want to skip 40, we want to skip 30 because user is on page number 4. Yeah, we'll add limit here. No worries. We can add in any order. It doesn't really matter. Okay. So we'll say page -1 times the count. Okay. And then we can pass the value that we have calculated. So this will send all the posts, and we can pass total post and posts from this function. With this, we will get all the posts and total post. So we say total records is total post. Okay. Is the flow clear? We define a router here. In the router, if the request is get post slash, then we will this is the request. Then we will send we will check the page value and the count value from the request. Then we will pass this to the fetch post function, which is interacting with database. So we are not writing any code here which is interacting with database. That we have to write in the controller. Okay. So we are just here looking at the request, fetching the response, and sending the response. That's it. We are only supposed to do only these things in the request handler. Rest of the logic should go inside controllers, right? So with this, we can start testing the first okay, I think here we should do connect database, right? We should do connect database, then only we should allow the request. Connect database dot then we say app dot listen, and inside this I will pass console.log server listening on http // localhost 3000. Okay, like this. So node index, and it says server listening on this. If we make a request directly here, we say cannot get because there is no route handling there. And you can see it returned 404 from Morgan logger. You can see it returned 404. But if we make a request, let's say post, then we get this data. So by default, we are getting, let me show you, network. By default, we are getting, we are saying there are 1000 records, there are 1000 posts, and we are getting first 10. Okay. The first title is the SSD hard drive is down. Okay. If we want, let's say, only 5 on each page, if we want only 5, then this time you will see that we are only sending 5 posts. Okay. The first one is SSD hard drive, and the last one is labor, but try to compress the DNS hard drive. Okay. If I do page 2, this time you see we are getting, I will generate the redundant JSON system. Okay, I think it's better if we just try with Thunder client. So a get request, page number 2, count is 5. So here we get the request. Okay, clear? We can change it to, let's say, count of 2 and page 1, right? The SSD hard drive one is the first one. Anyway, this is going to work. You can check. Clear? All right. So let's say if I were to add another feature to this of searching, right? So if let's say I'm searching for only SSD. So if I'm searching only those posts which have SSD in this, how can we send media using API endpoint request? What do you mean by media? Do you mean static files, image, and all that? Image, video, PDF, all these files. Okay. If you have MP3 files or anything, so you can store those in static files like this, like static files like this. Anything you can store in a folder like this, and then it should, and then in the index file, you can just use express.static, and this will serve all the files from here. Okay, you just have to use this path, folder location. So you should have /images/screenshot.png. I'll show you. Okay, wait till the end of the lecture. Okay, so if I have to add search capability here, so I can easily do that. So I can just say in the post route, I will look for search as well, and I will pass the search property here. Okay, so by default I'm having empty string. So now inside this, when we are finding the documents, we should have, let's say I want to search in title, right? And inside this, if I want to have, let's say, regex pattern, so I can get search here. Okay, you can build new regex here, and the pattern inside this, I think it has to be built like this. Let's see if this is going to work. If this does not work, then I'll have to change this. Also, if we want to, if we send search param here, if we send search param here, then we have to give the total number by filtering as well. So this total records should also consider only those documents where we are where the filter matches. Okay, so this thing should also go here. Do you understand why we are doing this? So let's say if out of these 5,000 records, if out of these 5,000 records we only have 300 contain the word SSD, right? So what user is going to show on what we are going to show on front end is that you're seeing, so you're searching with SSD and you're seeing 1 to 10 of 300 that match the search. Okay, so left and right. Okay, this is what we are going to show. We don't really care how many total records are there in total, but we care that whatever user is searching for, how many of the records are the total records that are matching the filter. Okay, so I think this is supposed to work, but let's see. Or we can also give this. So I'm going to go and search with SSD. Oh, it says total record 0. Let me try here. db dot I'll have to search, I think, mongoose regex case insensitive example. Mm, 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 mm. Okay, I think we have to remove these things. We have to give a string pattern. So if we do this, I think this is supposed to work now. So in this, you will see that all of the responses have, you can see here as well. So in total, there are 32 records which have the word SSD in title. All of the words are going to include SSD. Okay, clear? This is how you can build uh, pagination API, pagination API, and yeah, the rest of the APIs I think should be easy for you. You can also build an API where you create a post. Okay, I'm going to use this, and let's remove all of this. Here we are going to use request body. We need title, content, and user ID. Okay, so we are going to build a function. We are going to build a function saying async function add post, and inside this we will have title, content, and user ID. Okay, first we want to fetch the user. So we say await dot user. Let's use user model dot find by ID. Okay. We want to make sure that the user with this user ID exists. Okay. So we say if user exists, otherwise we will throw an error saying user does not exist. If the user exists, then we will create a post saying post dot create. Here we will pass the title and the content, and the author we will pass as user ID, and we will pass name of the author as user dot name, and image user dot image. With this, you can return the post from here and export this function. I hope you're able to follow me. I hope I'm not going too fast. Okay. So add post. Here just pass title, content, and user ID. Right here in the data, we don't need to pass anything as such. We'll just pass the post that we get here from here, and we need to make this asynchronous function. Okay. With this, you can easily add a router, say post router, and add the body which has user ID. For example, I'll use this user ID. I'll use a title. So some random title. I'm just going to copy this. And content is, I'm just going to copy some content from here. Okay. If I make the call, then you will see I get the data, and author is this one. ID is this one. Okay. So you can build APIs like that, and it should you can use whatever we have learned so far, and it should be easy for you to create all the CRUD operation APIs for all user blog post, user post, comment, any type of CRUD operations that you want to do. Any questions? Is this clear? Is this clear or not? So we're done with this. Yeah. I'm going to say relations, faker, and pagination. Cool. So the key takeaway or the summary from this lecture should be that what are different types of relations and how do we represent those relations in our models, in our DB models. And second thing we learned was how to create fake data for development testing, because of this huge data, we will not be able to test pagination properly. So you don't want to create all this data manually. So this is where faker is used for adding the data. For that, we wrote some script. These scripts are never used during when the server is running, listening for request, right? It is only once in a we execute these scripts manually so that we can populate the data, right? And the next thing that we learned was how to implement pagination. Uh, we implemented the example of pagination. So how to implement pagination in our APIs. Okay. We don't have any class tomorrow. I think. I think next class we have is on next week. Next week Tuesday. Okay. And the next class is going to be about authorization and authentication. So we have till this point we have learned how to make REST APIs, and uh, we have looked at Express framework, what how HTTP works and how Express helps us in making an HTTP server. Then we looked at so tomorrow we have a class. Okay, I'll have to check. Um, I did not get any invite. Let me. I'll let. I'll check. Okay. So if we have a class, I'm available. That's not a problem. Sure. So just to summarize what we have learned so far, we have looked at how basics of Node, and then we have looked at what HTTP is, how it works, then how to build HTTP servers with Express. In the fourth class, we looked at different how middlewares work in how we can implement middlewares, how middlewares work in Express. And then we started with database. In sprint 2 we started with databases because we were not so happy with the file system storage, so we did not want to store all of our data in files. After that we looked at uh, relations and CRUD operations and MongoDB, all these things, right? Okay, it's fine. If we have a class, that's fine. No problem. How do we make API URL like we are already sending the text here, right? Aman. So do you want to send space or something like that? Where to use equal and where to use question mark? Is that your question? Mm. How to construct the URL from in JavaScript? You can easily have something like uh, let's say page is 1, right? Let count is 20. Let search is SSD. Then you create the URL by saying http://localhost 3000 slash page slash question mark. So I'm using backtick here. I say page is page like this, and this is and. So between all the query params we use and. We use count and search. We use search. So this will be generated for us. Okay. Is this clear? This means that after this the URL we are adding query params. This is, you can read about query params, but you should already know these things. The question mark represents that after this these are optional params. Okay, this is the main URL. After that these are options. Yes, this one is the router text. Before question mark we have router text. This is the main endpoint and these are the options for this. So options can change the way the data we get, right? The response we get. Okay, I hope it is clear. Anything else? Cool. I guess there are no doubts. Sending picture or video to the client. This we have already covered. So going back to this folder where I showed you that you use express.static and any folder which has static files like JS, image, videos, you can also have audios, PDFs, whatever you have. You use a middleware like this. And when you run this, so for example, I am serving index file here. Okay. So this index file is fetching image screenshot. So if you look at this, this is the URL. This is the URL. If I open this, then all of this is getting served from localhost. Okay. So this is the path. Whatever is the path, if you have any video, so I don't have any video as such, but if I paste a video here and I create a folder for videos, right? Then I can directly change from, let's say, videos slash dummy.mp4. Okay. Right now we don't have uh, any file that matches this path, but any file that matches the path like this inside the static folder will be served from this uh, static middleware. Okay, cool. All right, folks. Does that this also answers your question? Somebody was asking, Paran, you were asking, right? So you can put all of your MP3 files in the static folder. Cool. All right, folks. I'll see you in the next class then. Bye. Good night.